Welcome, dear friend, to a Rome where shadows dance with sunlight, where ambition clashes with compassion, and where the enduring flame of the human spirit flickers against the winds of change. You will walk the ancient streets of the eternal city, your footsteps echoing alongside those of Vestal Virgins, brave centurions, cunning merchants, and hopeful mothers. You will witness the splendor of imperial Rome, and the quiet resilience of its people. But most importantly, you will discover the timeless tale of a young woman's quest to protect the very soul of Rome, a quest that will challenge her beliefs, test her courage, and reveal the profound interconnectedness of all things. So, open your heart and mind, dear friend, and step into a world where the past echoes in the present, where legends intertwine with reality, and where the eternal flame of hope burns bright against the darkness. The year was 64 AD, a time of opulence and trepidation under Emperor Nero's capricious rule. Rome, a city of marble and grandeur, pulsed with the lifeblood of a million souls. Yet, beneath the veneer of imperial splendor, a subtle unease permeated the air. Nero's excesses, his rumored cruelty, and his penchant for self-aggrandizement cast a long shadow over the eternal city. In the heart of Rome, nestled amidst the forum's bustling activity, stood the atrium Vestae, the sacred dwelling of the Vestal Virgins. These priestesses, chosen for their lineage and purity, held a unique position in Roman society. Their primary duty was to tend to the eternal flame of Vesta, the goddess of the hearth, home, and family. The flame, housed in a circular shrine within the temple, was believed to represent the very heart and soul of Rome. Its extinction would signify a catastrophic omen, a harbinger of doom for the entire empire. Among the 6 Vestal Virgins was Livia, a young woman of noble lineage and unwavering devotion. At 22, she had already served Vesta for 8 years, a testament to her piety and dedication. Her days were filled with rituals and ceremonies, tending to the sacred fire, preparing offerings, and participating in the numerous festivals dedicated to the goddess. Livia was more than just a dutiful priestess. She possessed an inquisitive mind, a thirst for knowledge that extended beyond the confines of religious doctrine. In her private quarters, she devoured scrolls containing the histories and philosophies of Greece and Rome, seeking to understand the forces that shaped her world. One sweltering afternoon, as Livia knelt before the sacred hearth, a shiver ran down her spine. The eternal flame, usually a beacon of unwavering strength, flickered unsteadily, its golden glow dimming for a fleeting moment. An icy dread gripped her heart. Could this be a sign, a warning of impending doom? She recalled the stories whispered among the Vestals, tales of a time when the flame had nearly extinguished, plunging Rome into chaos. Legend held that only a virgin of pure heart and unwavering devotion to the city could restore its radiance. Livia knew she could not ignore this omen. She resolved to seek answers, to delve into the mysteries surrounding the eternal flame and uncover the truth behind its sudden weakness. That night, as the city slumbered under a blanket of stars, Livia stole away from the atrium Vestae. Clad in a simple tunic and sandals, her long auburn hair cascading down her back, she ventured into the labyrinthine streets of Rome. The moon cast elongated shadows, dancing upon the ancient cobblestones. The air was thick with the scent of roasting meat and spilled wine, remnants of the day's revelry. Livia's heart pounded in her chest as she navigated the dimly lit alleyways. She knew the risks she was taking. Leaving the temple at night was strictly forbidden, punishable by the harshest penalties. But fear had given way to a burning determination to protect the flame, to safeguard the spirit of Rome. Her destination was the temple of Jupiter Optimus Maximus, the largest and most imposing temple in Rome. Perched atop the Capitoline Hill, it housed the statue of Jupiter, the king of the gods, alongside Juno and Minerva. Livia hoped to find wisdom and guidance within its hallowed walls. As she ascended the steep steps leading to the temple, a sense of awe washed over her. The massive columns, adorned with intricate carvings, seemed to reach towards the heavens. The bronze doors, polished to a mirror-like shine, reflected the moon's silvery glow. Taking a deep breath, Livia pushed open the heavy doors and stepped inside. The interior of the temple was dimly lit by flickering oil lamps, casting long shadows that danced upon the walls. The air was heavy with the scent of incense, creating an atmosphere of reverence and mystery. In the center of the temple, bathed in the faint light, stood the colossal statue of Jupiter. He was depicted seated on a throne, his right hand raised in a gesture of benediction. His stern expression seemed to pierce Livia's very soul. Kneeling before the statue, Livia offered a silent prayer to Jupiter, seeking his protection and guidance. As she closed her eyes, she felt a strange sensation, as if the air around her was thickening, becoming charged with an unseen energy. Suddenly, a voice echoed through the temple, a voice both ancient and ethereal. "The flame wavers, Vestal," it whispered, "and with it, the spirit of Rome. Only a heart pure and filled with the city's essence can restore its radiance." Livia's eyes snapped open. She scanned the temple, searching for the source of the voice, but she saw no one. The voice spoke again, this time with greater urgency. "Seek the heart of Rome, Vestal. Learn its stories, its joys, its sorrows. Only then will you understand the true meaning of the eternal flame." Livia rose to her feet, her heart pounding in her chest. The voice had given her a mission, a purpose. She would seek out the heart of Rome, learn its secrets, and find a way to restore the eternal flame to its former glory. As she turned to leave the temple, she cast one last glance at the statue of Jupiter. His eyes seemed to follow her, as if urging her on her quest. The following morning, Livia awoke with a renewed sense of purpose. The events of the previous night had left an indelible mark on her soul. The ethereal voice, the cryptic message, the sense of urgency, all of it had coalesced into a driving force within her. She knew she could not confide in her fellow Vestals. They would deem her actions as reckless, even heretical. The punishment for leaving the temple at night, especially for a Vestal Virgin, was severe. Yet, Livia could not ignore the warning she had received. The fate of Rome, she believed, rested on her shoulders. She resolved to continue her quest in secret, venturing out into the city under the guise of performing her daily duties. As she walked through the forum, her senses were assaulted by the sights, sounds, and smells of Roman life. Merchants hawked their wares, orators debated passionately, and children played amongst the marble columns. Livia observed the throngs of people with a newfound curiosity. Who were they? What were their stories? What did they love and fear? She realized that the heart of Rome lay not in its monuments or institutions, but in the lives of its people. Her first encounter came as she was passing by the Basilica Julia, a grand public building used for legal proceedings and commercial transactions. A group of men, dressed in the simple tunics of the working class, were engaged in a heated argument. Livia paused to listen, intrigued by their passionate exchange. The men were debating the merits of a recent gladiatorial contest, their voices rising and falling in a symphony of Latin. One of the men, a burly fellow with a thick beard, argued that the victor had cheated, using underhanded tactics to win the match. Another, a lean man with a sardonic grin, countered that the victor had simply been more skilled and resourceful. Livia was struck by the intensity of their emotions. These were not idle words spoken in jest, they were deeply held beliefs, reflections of the men's identities and values. She realized that even in the seemingly mundane aspects of life, the Roman spirit was alive and well. As she continued her journey, Livia sought out individuals from all walks of life. She spoke with soldiers returning from the frontiers, their bodies bearing the scars of battle. She listened to the tales of merchants who had traveled the Silk Road, bringing back exotic goods from distant lands. She conversed with mothers who nurtured their children in the crowded insulae, instilling in them the values of hard work and perseverance. Each encounter revealed a different facet of the Roman spirit. She witnessed the courage of the soldiers, the ambition of the merchants, and the resilience of the mothers. She saw the pride they took in their city, their unwavering belief in its destiny. Yet, she also glimpsed the darker side of Roman society. She heard whispers of corruption in the Senate, of the growing gap between rich and poor, of the cruelty inflicted upon slaves and gladiators. She saw the beggars lining the streets, the homeless huddled in doorways, the prostitutes plying their trade in the shadows. These sights filled Livia with a sense of unease. Was the flames weakening a reflection of Rome's moral decay? Had the city lost its way, abandoning the virtues that had made it great? As the sun began to set, Livia found herself standing before the Colosseum, the iconic amphitheater where gladiatorial games were held. The massive structure loomed over her, a symbol of both Rome's power and its brutality. She hesitated, unsure whether to enter. The games were a spectacle of violence and bloodshed, a far cry from the pious rituals she performed in the temple of Vesta. Yet, she knew she could not ignore this aspect of Roman life. Taking a deep breath, Livia stepped inside the Colosseum. The Colosseum was a world unto itself, a microcosm of Roman society. The air thrummed with anticipation, a palpable energy that crackled like the torches illuminating the arena. As Livia entered the vast amphitheater, she was greeted by a cacophony of sounds, the roar of the crowd, the clang of metal on metal, the cries of the wounded. She found a seat among the plebs, the common folk who filled the majority of the Colosseum seats. They were a boisterous lot, shouting encouragement to their favored gladiators, jeering at the fallen, and reveling in the spectacle of violence. Livia watched the games with a mixture of fascination and horror. The gladiators, clad in armor and wielding an array of weapons, fought with a ferocity that both repelled and enthralled her. Some were slaves, condemned to fight for their lives, others were freemen, seeking fame and fortune in the arena. As the battles raged, Livia found herself drawn into the drama. She cheered for the underdog, gasped at the near misses, and mourned the fallen. She realized that the games were more than just mindless entertainment, they were a reflection of Rome's martial spirit, its thirst for conquest, and its fascination with death. After several hours, the games came to an end. The surviving gladiators were hailed as heroes, while the bodies of the fallen were unceremoniously dragged from the arena. Livia rose from her seat, feeling emotionally drained yet strangely exhilarated. As she made her way out of the Colosseum, she noticed a commotion near one of the exits. A group of men were gathered around a young woman, their faces twisted in anger. Livia recognized the woman as a prostitute, one of the many who worked the streets around the Colosseum. The men were hurling insults at the woman, accusing her of stealing from them. The woman, her face pale and her eyes filled with fear, denied the accusations. But the men would not listen. They began to shove and push her, their anger escalating with each passing moment. Livia hesitated, unsure whether to intervene. She knew the dangers of getting involved in a street brawl. But as she watched the woman cower in fear, she could not stand idly by. "Leave her alone," she cried, stepping forward. The men turned to face her, their eyes filled with surprise and contempt. "Who are you to tell us what to do?" one of them sneered. "I am a Vestal Virgin," Livia said, her voice trembling slightly. "And I will not allow you to harm this woman." The men exchanged uneasy glances. The Vestal Virgins were revered figures in Roman society, their persons considered sacred. To harm one was considered a grave offense, punishable by death. The men grumbled and muttered under their breath, but they backed away from the woman. Livia helped the woman to her feet, offering words of comfort and reassurance. The prostitute, her eyes filled with gratitude, thanked Livia profusely. "You saved my life," she said. "I will never forget your kindness." Livia smiled. "It was nothing," she replied. "We are all Romans, and we must look out for one another." As Livia walked away from the Colosseum, she felt a sense of satisfaction. She had not only witnessed the heart of Rome, but she had also played a small part in protecting it. The flame within her, the flame of compassion and justice, burned brighter than ever before. Returning to the Atrium Vesti under the cover of darkness, Livia felt a mixture of exhaustion and exhilaration. The events of the day had opened her eyes to the complexities of Roman society, the beauty and the ugliness, the hope and the despair. She realized that the flame's weakening was not just a physical phenomenon, but a reflection of the challenges and contradictions inherent in the Roman spirit. As she prepared for bed, Livia couldn't shake the feeling that her journey had only just begun. The voice in the temple had urged her to seek the heart of Rome, and she knew there were still many stories to be heard, many lessons to be learned. She fell asleep with the image of the eternal flame flickering in her mind, a symbol of both hope and uncertainty, a reminder of the delicate balance between light and darkness that defined her beloved city. The interior of the Colosseum was a stark contrast to the sunlit forum. Here, the air was heavy with the stench of sweat, blood, and animal musk. The roar of the crowd, a symphony of cheers, jeers, and gasps, reverberated off the stone walls, creating a deafening cacophony. Livia found a seat high in the stands, far from the frenzied energy of the plebeian masses. From her vantage point, she could see the entire arena, a sprawling oval of sand-stained crimson with the blood of countless gladiators. The games had already begun. Two gladiators, one armed with a sword and shield, the other with a net and trident, circled each other warily. The crowd roared its approval, hungry for the kill. Livia watched the spectacle with a mix of fascination and revulsion. The gladiators were skilled fighters, their movements honed through years of brutal training. They danced around each other, thrusting and parrying, their eyes locked in a deadly duel. Suddenly, the gladiator with the trident lunged forward, his net whistling through the air. The swordsman dodged, narrowly avoiding the entangling web. He counterattacked with a swift thrust, his sword finding its mark in the trident wielder's shoulder. The crowd erupted in a frenzy of cheers and boos. Livia felt a surge of adrenaline as she watched the battle unfold. Despite the brutality of the spectacle, she could not deny the raw courage and skill of the gladiators. They were warriors, fighting for their lives, their every move a testament to the human spirit's indomitable will. As the games progressed, Livia witnessed a variety of contests, each more brutal than the last. Men fought against beasts, beasts fought against beasts, and men fought against men. The sand grew slick with blood, the air thick with the scent of death. Yet, amidst the carnage, Livia glimpsed moments of unexpected humanity. A gladiator, mortally wounded, reached out to his opponent, a gesture of respect and camaraderie in the face of death. A fallen warrior was spared by the crowd's thumbs up, a testament to the power of compassion even in the most savage of arenas. As the sun began to set, the final match of the day was announced. Two gladiators, both renowned for their skill and ferocity, would face each other in a fight to the death. The crowd erupted in anticipation, their bloodlust reaching a fever pitch. Livia watched as the two warriors entered the arena, their eyes locked in a silent challenge. One was a towering Gaul, his muscles rippling beneath his scarred armor. The other was a lithe Numidian, his skin gleaming with sweat and oil. The battle was a whirlwind of steel and fury. The Gaul, with his superior strength, drove the Numidian back, his blows raining down like hammer strikes. The Numidian, however, was more agile, dodging and weaving, his sword flashing like lightning. The fight seemed evenly matched, neither gladiator gaining a decisive advantage. Then, in a sudden twist of fate, the Numidian stumbled, his foot catching in the sand. The Gaul seized the opportunity, his sword plunging into the Numidian's chest. The crowd roared its approval, their cheers echoing through the Colosseum. Livia watched as the Numidian's lifeless body was dragged from the arena. She felt a pang of sorrow for the fallen warrior, a man who had fought bravely but ultimately met his end in the unforgiving sands of the Colosseum. As she rose to leave, she noticed a commotion near one of the exits. A group of men were gathered around a figure slumped against the wall. Livia recognized him as Marcus, the centurion she had spoken to earlier in the day. He was bleeding profusely from a gash on his head, his armor dented and his face pale. Livia rushed to his side, her heart pounding in her chest. "Marcus, what happened?" she asked, kneeling beside him. Marcus opened his eyes, his vision blurry. "Ambush," he muttered. "Praetorian Guard. Nero's dogs." Livia's blood ran cold. The Praetorian Guard, the emperor's personal bodyguard, were known for their ruthlessness and loyalty to Nero. Why would they attack Marcus? She helped Marcus to his feet, supporting his weight as they made their way out of the Colosseum. The streets outside the Colosseum were dark and deserted, the crowds having dispersed after the games. Livia scanned the shadows, wary of any Praetorian patrols. She knew they had to get Marcus to safety quickly. "Where can I take you?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. Marcus groaned in pain. "My home. Suburra district." Livia nodded. The Suburra, a notorious district known for its slums and criminal activity, was not the safest place, but it was the only place Marcus had. She tightened her grip on his arm and led him through the maze-like alleys. As they walked, Marcus's breathing grew more labored. Livia could feel the warmth of his blood seeping through her tunic. She knew they had to find a doctor soon. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the shadows, blocking their path. It was a young man, his face hidden beneath a hooded cloak. He held a dagger in his hand. "Give me your money," he snarled, his voice rough and menacing. Livia's heart sank. This was not what they needed right now. "We have no money," she said, her voice shaking. "My friend is injured. Please, let us pass." The young man sneered. "Don't lie to me, woman. I saw you at the Colosseum. You're a Vestal Virgin, aren't you? I bet you're loaded." Livia's eyes widened in alarm. How did he know who she was? Had he been following them? Before she could respond, Marcus lunged forward, his remaining strength propelling him towards the attacker. The two men grappled, their bodies twisting and turning in the darkness. Livia watched in horror as Marcus's strength failed him. The young man overpowered him, his dagger flashing in the moonlight. "No!" Livia screamed, running towards them. But it was too late. The dagger plunged into Marcus's chest, and he collapsed to the ground with a groan. The young man snatched Livia's purse and fled into the night. Livia knelt beside Marcus, her hands trembling. "Hold on," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "I'll get help." But Marcus's eyes were already glazing over. He reached out a hand, his fingers brushing against Livia's cheek. "Roma," he whispered, his voice barely audible. "Remember? Rome." And then he was gone. Livia cradled Marcus's lifeless body in her arms, her sobs echoing through the empty streets. The centurion, a man who had dedicated his life to Rome, had died in the shadows, his sacrifice unnoticed and unappreciated. As she wept, Livia felt a burning anger rise within her. The Praetorian Guard, Nero's thugs, had murdered Marcus. And the young thief, a product of Rome's neglect and inequality, had stolen what little they had. Livia knew then that the flame's weakening was not just a spiritual crisis, but a reflection of Rome's growing corruption and injustice. The city was losing its way, its noble ideals tarnished by greed and violence. She rose to her feet, her eyes filled with a newfound determination. She would not let Marcus's death be in vain. She would find a way to rekindle the flame, not just for Rome, but for all those who had suffered under Nero's tyranny. As Livia stepped back into the lamplit streets of Rome, the Colosseum's raucous energy faded behind her, replaced by the eerie silence of the Suburra district. The narrow alleys twisted and turned, their shadows concealing the city's underbelly, a world away from the marble facades and grand monuments. Here, the air hung heavy with the stench of stale urine and rotting food, the silence punctuated by the occasional scurrying of rats or the drunken mutterings of a late-night reveler. Clutching Marcus's limp body, Livia navigated the labyrinthine streets, her senses heightened. The weight of his lifeless form pressed upon her, a constant reminder of the brutality she had witnessed, the fragility of life in Nero's Rome. Desperation fueled her steps. She had to find a physician, someone who could tend to Marcus's wounds. Perhaps, even with the fatal blow, there was still a glimmer of hope. A faint light flickered in the distance, emanating from a grimy tavern. Livia approached cautiously, her hand tightening around the dagger she had taken from Marcus's belt. She pushed open the creaking door, the hinges protesting with a mournful screech. The tavern's interior was a dimly lit den of iniquity. Rough-hewn tables were scattered haphazardly, their surfaces stained with the remnants of countless debaucheries. A motley crew of patrons occupied the stools and benches, their faces etched with the marks of a hard life. Smoke hung thick in the air, a noxious blend of cheap wine, unwashed bodies, and burning lamp oil. Livia's sudden appearance caused a momentary hush. All eyes turned towards her, their gazes a mixture of curiosity and suspicion. A burly barkeep, his arms thick with muscle, emerged from behind the counter, his eyes narrowed. "What brings a Vestal Virgin to a place like this?" he growled, his voice gruff and menacing. Livia swallowed hard, her heart pounding in her chest. "My friend is injured," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "He needs help." The barkeep's eyes darted to Marcus's body, a flicker of recognition crossing his face. "Marcus? The centurion?" Livia nodded. The barkeep let out a sigh. "Bring him over here," he said, gesturing towards a small alcove in the back of the tavern. Livia helped Marcus into the alcove, laying him gently on a makeshift bed of straw. The barkeep knelt beside him, his calloused fingers probing the wound on Marcus's chest. "It's bad," he said, shaking his head. "The blade pierced his lung. He won't last long." Livia's eyes filled with tears. "Is there anything you can do?" she pleaded. The barkeep shrugged. I can give him something for the pain, but that's about it. He reached for a bottle of murky liquid and poured a generous amount into a cup. Livia held the cup to Marcus's lips, gently tilting it as he swallowed the bitter potion. For a moment, his breathing seemed to ease, his face relaxing into a semblance of peace. Thank you, Livia whispered, taking Marcus's hand in hers. Marcus's eyes fluttered open, his gaze locking onto Livia's. Remember, he whispered, his voice barely audible. Roma. Eternal flame. Then, with a final gasp, he breathed his last. Livia sat beside Marcus's body, her mind reeling. The centurion, a man who had dedicated his life to Rome, had died in the arms of a Vestal Virgin, his last words a plea to protect the city's soul. As dawn broke, casting a pale light into the tavern, Livia rose to her feet. She knew she could not stay here any longer. She had to return to the temple, to her duties, to the eternal flame. But Marcus's words echoed in her mind. Roma. Eternal flame. She knew that her quest was far from over. She had seen the heart of Rome, its beauty and its darkness, its hope and its despair. She had witnessed the courage of its soldiers, the ambition of its merchants, the resilience of its mothers. But she had also seen the cruelty of its rulers, the injustice of its laws, the corruption of its institutions. Livia knew that the flame's weakening was a symptom of a deeper malaise, a sickness that had infected the very heart of Rome. She resolved to find a way to heal the sickness, to restore the city's spirit to its former glory. With a heavy heart, Livia bid farewell to the barkeep, leaving Marcus's body in his care. As she stepped back into the streets of Rome, the rising sun painted the sky in hues of gold and crimson. A new day had dawned, a day filled with uncertainty and danger. But Livia was no longer the naive young priestess she had been. She was a woman on a mission, a woman determined to save the soul of her beloved city. The sun beat down mercilessly on the Forum Romanum as Livia made her way towards the heart of Rome's bustling marketplace. The air thrummed with the energy of 1,000 voices, a symphony of haggling merchants, gossiping matrons, and playful children. Stalls overflowed with goods from every corner of the empire, spices from Arabia, silks from China, glassware from Alexandria, and grain from Egypt. The Forum was a testament to Rome's vast reach, a microcosm of the empire's diverse cultures and peoples. Here, one could encounter a Greek philosopher debating the nature of reality, a Parthian envoy negotiating a trade agreement, or a Nubian slave carrying a basket of figs. Livia's senses were overwhelmed by the kaleidoscope of sights, sounds, and smells. She weaved through the throngs of people, her eyes darting from one stall to the next. She paused to admire a display of intricately crafted jewelry, her fingers tracing the delicate patterns etched into gold and silver. As she continued her journey, she noticed a stall that stood out from the rest. It was laden with exotic goods, unlike anything she had ever seen before. Bolts of shimmering silk draped over tables, their colors as vibrant as a peacock's feathers. Clay jars filled with fragrant spices lined the shelves, their aromas mingling in a heady perfume. A man, his face tanned and weathered from years of travel, stood behind the stall, his eyes twinkling with amusement as he watched Livia's reaction. He was dressed in the flowing robes of a merchant, his belt adorned with a pouch overflowing with coins. "Welcome, young lady," he said, his voice warm and inviting. "May I interest you in something from my humble collection?" Livia stepped closer, her eyes wide with wonder. "What are these?" she asked, pointing to a bolt of shimmering blue silk. The merchant smiled. "This, my dear, is silk from the land of Ceres, a nation far to the east. It is said to be spun from the cocoons of a rare worm, and its value is greater than gold. Livia ran her fingers over the smooth fabric, marveling at its softness and iridescence. "It's beautiful," she whispered. The merchant nodded. "Indeed, it is. But beauty is not its only virtue. Silk is also incredibly strong and durable, capable of withstanding the harshest elements. It is a testament to the ingenuity and craftsmanship of the Ceres people." Livia's mind raced. The silk, a product of a distant land, was a tangible reminder of Rome's interconnectedness with the world. The empire's vast trade networks brought goods and ideas from every corner of the known world, enriching Roman culture and expanding its horizons. "Tell me more about the Ceres," Livia said, eager to learn about this mysterious land. The merchant launched into a captivating tale, describing the Ceres as a people of great wisdom and artistry. He spoke of their vast cities, their intricate silk weaving techniques, and their reverence for nature. He even recounted a legend of a magical tree that produced silkworms, a tale that filled Livia with wonder and awe. As Livia listened to the merchant's stories, she realized that the Roman Empire was not just a military and political power, but also a cultural and intellectual force. The exchange of goods and ideas had created a vibrant tapestry of knowledge and innovation, a testament to the human spirit's boundless curiosity and creativity. "Rome is truly a remarkable city," Livia said, her voice filled with pride. The merchant smiled. "Indeed, it is," he agreed. "But it is not without its flaws. I have seen the poverty in the Suburra, the corruption in the Senate, the cruelty in the Colosseum. Rome is a city of contrasts, a place of both great beauty and great darkness." Livia nodded, her heart heavy. The merchant's words echoed her own observations. She had seen the best and worst of Rome, the noble ideals and the harsh realities. She knew that the flame's weakening was not just a spiritual crisis, but a reflection of the empire's internal struggles. "What do you think will become of Rome?" Livia asked, her voice laced with concern. The merchant paused, his eyes gazing into the distance. "The future is uncertain," he said. "But as long as the Roman spirit endures, the flame will never truly die." He reached beneath his stall and retrieved a small, intricately carved box. "This is for you," he said, handing it to Livia. Livia opened the box, revealing a single silk cocoon, its shimmering threads promising the possibility of transformation and renewal. A warmth spread through Livia's chest as she held the cocoon. It was a gift of hope, a reminder that even in the darkest of times, the potential for new beginnings always existed. "Thank you," she said, her voice filled with gratitude. "I will cherish this." The merchant smiled, his eyes twinkling with warmth. "Remember, young Vestal, that the flame within you is just as important as the flame in the temple. Nurture it, protect it, and let it guide you on your path." Livia nodded, her heart filled with a newfound resolve. She would not let the flame die, not while there was still hope, not while there were still stories to be told, not while the Roman spirit lived on in the hearts of its people. As she bid farewell to the merchant and continued her journey through the Forum, Livia carried the silk cocoon with her, a tangible symbol of the interconnectedness of the world, the resilience of the human spirit, and the enduring power of hope. The sun was beginning to dip below the horizon as Livia made her way towards the Aventine Hill, a quiet residential area overlooking the city. She had one more stop to make before returning to the temple. She had heard tales of a woman who lived in a modest villa on the Aventine, a woman known for her wisdom and compassion. Livia hoped to find solace and guidance in her presence. As she approached the villa, she noticed a group of children playing in the courtyard. Their laughter filled the air, a stark contrast to the grim realities she had witnessed earlier in the day. Livia paused to watch them, a smile spreading across her face. The children were playing a game of tag, their voices echoing through the quiet streets. A young girl, her hair adorned with wildflowers, chased after a boy, her laughter ringing out like a silver bell. Livia's heart swelled with a mixture of joy and sadness. She longed to join in their carefree play, to forget the burdens she carried. But she knew her duty lay elsewhere. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the courtyard, Livia approached the villa's entrance. She knocked softly, her heart pounding in her chest. The door opened, revealing a woman of middle age, her face etched with lines of wisdom and compassion. Her eyes, the color of the sea at dusk, sparkled with kindness. "Welcome, child," she said, her voice as soothing as a gentle breeze. "Come in." Livia stepped inside, her eyes adjusting to the dim light. The villa was simple but elegant, its walls adorned with tapestries and paintings. The air was filled with the scent of lavender and beeswax. The woman led Livia to a small sitting room, where a fire crackled in the hearth. She gestured for Livia to sit, and then she took a seat opposite her. "You are troubled, child," the woman said, her eyes searching Livia's face. "Tell me what weighs on your heart." Livia hesitated, unsure whether to confide in a stranger. But there was something about the woman's presence, a warmth and understanding that put her at ease. Taking a deep breath, Livia poured out her heart, recounting the events of the past few days. She told the woman about the weakening of the eternal flame, the cryptic message in the temple of Jupiter, her encounters with the centurion, the merchant, and the children in the courtyard. She spoke of her fears for Rome, her doubts about her own abilities, and her determination to rekindle the flame. The woman listened patiently, her eyes never leaving Livia's face. When Livia had finished speaking, the woman reached out and took her hand. "You have a good heart, child," she said. "And you have been given a great responsibility. But you are not alone. The spirit of Rome lives within you, just as it lives within every Roman. Trust in yourself, and trust in the flame." The woman's words filled Livia with a renewed sense of hope. She realized that she was not just a Vestal Virgin, but a daughter of Rome. And as a daughter of Rome, she had a duty to protect the flame, to nurture the spirit of the city, and to pass it on to future generations. Livia rose to her feet, her eyes shining with determination. "Thank you," she said. "I will not fail." The woman smiled. "I know you won't," she said. "Now go, child. Your destiny awaits." Livia left the villa, her heart filled with gratitude and resolve. She had found solace in the wisdom of a stranger, a woman who had reminded her of her own strength and the importance of her mission. The Aventine Hill, unlike the bustling Forum or the imposing Palatine, exuded an air of tranquility. Its winding streets were lined with modest villas and terraced gardens, offering respite from the city's clamor. As Livia made her way up the hill, the fading sunlight cast long shadows, painting the cobblestone streets in hues of lavender and gold. The villa she sought was unassuming, its whitewashed walls and terracotta roof blending seamlessly with the surrounding landscape. A small courtyard, adorned with a fountain and fragrant herbs, beckoned Livia inside. The sound of children's laughter drifted from within, a melody of innocence and joy. A woman, her hair the color of moonlight, emerged from the villa. Her face, though etched with lines of experience, radiated warmth and kindness. Her eyes, the color of the sea at dusk, held a depth of understanding that Livia found both comforting and intriguing. "Welcome, child," the woman said, her voice as soothing as a gentle breeze. I have been expecting you. Livia blinked, surprised by the woman's words. You know who I am? She asked. The woman smiled. I know much, young Vestal. But come, let us not stand on ceremony. Enter, and let us talk. Livia followed the woman into the villa, her senses filled with the comforting scents of beeswax and lavender. The interior was sparsely furnished, but each piece seemed carefully chosen, imbued with a sense of history and purpose. The woman led Livia to a small sitting room, where a fire crackled merrily in the hearth. She gestured for Livia to sit on a plush cushioned chair, then took a seat opposite her, her hands folded gracefully in her lap. My name is Claudia, the woman said. And you, I believe, are Livia, a Vestal Virgin. Livia nodded, her eyes fixed on Claudia's face. There was an aura of serenity about her, a quiet strength that drew Livia in. I have heard of your troubles, child, Claudia continued. The weakening of the flame, the cryptic message in the temple of Jupiter, the encounters you have had. Livia's heart skipped a beat. How did Claudia know all this? Had the ethereal voice spoken to her as well? Do not be alarmed, Claudia said, as if sensing Livia's thoughts. The gods have their ways of communicating with those who are open to their whispers. I am merely a vessel, a conduit for their wisdom. Livia leaned forward, eager to hear what Claudia had to say. You are on a quest, Livia, Claudia began. A quest to rekindle the flame that burns within you, the flame that connects you to the heart of Rome. But I am just one person, Livia protested. What can I do to save the city's soul? Claudia smiled. You underestimate yourself, child. You are a Vestal Virgin, a guardian of the sacred flame. Your actions, your choices, have a ripple effect that can shape the destiny of Rome. But the flame is weakening, Livia said, her voice trembling. I fear for the future of Rome. Fear not, child, Claudia reassured her. The flame may flicker, but it will never die. It is the eternal flame, the spirit of Rome, passed down through generations. It is the courage of the centurion, the vision of the merchant, the hope of the mother. As Claudia spoke, Livia's mind flashed back to her encounters in the Forum and the Colosseum. She saw the faces of the centurion, the merchant, and the children playing in the courtyard. She realized that the flame was not just a physical entity, but a collective spirit, a force that bound the people of Rome together. But how can I rekindle the flame? Livia asked, her voice filled with desperation. Claudia reached out and took Livia's hand in hers. Look within yourself, child, she said. The flame burns brightly within your heart. It is the love you have for your city, the compassion you feel for your fellow Romans, the hope you hold for the future. Livia closed her eyes, focusing on the warmth radiating from Claudia's hand. She could feel the flame within her, a flickering ember that threatened to go out. But then, as she recalled the faces of those she had met, the ember began to glow brighter, its warmth spreading throughout her body. When she opened her eyes, she saw that Claudia was smiling. You see, child, she said. The flame is not lost. It merely needs to be nurtured. Livia nodded, a sense of peace washing over her. She realized that the quest to rekindle the flame was not a solitary one. It was a collective effort, a journey that involved all Romans, from the highest senator to the lowliest slave. Thank you, Claudia, Livia said, her voice filled with gratitude. You have given me hope. Claudia squeezed Livia's hand. Remember, child, the flame is within you. Nurture it, protect it, and let it guide you on your path. As Livia made her way back to the temple, she carried with her a newfound sense of purpose and hope. She knew the road ahead would be long and arduous, but she was no longer alone. She had the support of the Roman people, the wisdom of Claudia, and the eternal flame burning within her heart. With a heavy heart and a newfound resolve, Livia retraced her steps back towards the atrium Vesti. The city around her was slowly waking to a new day. Shopkeepers were removing shutters, street vendors were setting up their stalls, and the aroma of freshly baked bread wafted from the bakeries. Yet, the usual bustle of Rome felt muted, as if the city itself mourned the loss of Marcus and the fading flame of its spirit. Livia's mind raced, piecing together the fragments of her encounters. The centurion's unwavering courage, the merchant's global perspective, the mother's unyielding hope, and Claudia's gentle wisdom, each had contributed a piece to the puzzle, a glimpse into the complex tapestry that was Rome. As she approached the temple, a sense of dread washed over her. How would she explain her absence? Would her fellow Vestals understand the urgency of her quest? Or would they condemn her for breaking her sacred vows? With a trembling hand, she pushed open the temple door, the hinges creaking like an old man's bones. The familiar scent of incense and beeswax calmed her frayed nerves. The eternal flame flickered in its shrine, its light casting long shadows across the marble floor. Her fellow Vestals, still clad in their white robes, were gathered around the hearth, their faces etched with concern. "Livia!" exclaimed Flavia, the eldest of the Vestals. "Where have you been? We were worried sick." Livia took a deep breath, her heart pounding in her chest. I had an errand to run," she stammered. Flavia's brow furrowed. "An errand? At this hour? And in those clothes?" Livia glanced down at her simple tunic, stained with Marcus's blood. I cannot explain," she said, her voice barely a whisper. A hushed silence fell over the room. The Vestals exchanged uneasy glances, their eyes darting between Livia and the flickering flame. "Something is wrong, isn't it?" asked Julia, the youngest of the Vestals, her voice trembling. Livia nodded, her eyes filling with tears. "The flame, it is weakening. And I fear it is a sign of great danger for Rome." The Vestals gasped, their faces paling. The eternal flame was not just a religious symbol, it was the embodiment of Rome's spirit, its vitality, its very essence. If the flame were to die, it would signify the end of Rome as they knew it. "What can we do?" asked Terentia, her voice filled with panic. Livia looked at each of her sisters, her eyes filled with a newfound resolve. "We must rekindle the flame," she said. "We must find a way to restore the spirit of Rome." The Vestals stared at Livia, their eyes wide with surprise. Never before had a Vestal Virgin spoken such bold words. But Livia's conviction was contagious. A spark of hope ignited in their hearts, a flicker of defiance against the encroaching darkness. "But how?" asked Flavia, her voice hesitant. "What can we, mere women, do against the forces that threaten Rome?" Livia smiled. "We are not mere women," she said. "We are Vestal Virgins, guardians of the sacred flame. We are the keepers of Rome's heart and soul." She reached into the folds of her tunic and retrieved the silk cocoon, holding it aloft for all to see. "This," she said, "is a gift from a merchant who has traveled the world. It is a symbol of hope, of resilience, of the interconnectedness of all things." Livia placed the cocoon on the altar beside the flickering flame. "Just as this cocoon will one day transform into a beautiful butterfly, so too can Rome transform and renew itself," she said. But it will take all of us, working together, to make it happen. The Vestals gathered around the altar, their eyes fixed on the cocoon and the flame. For a moment, the only sound was the crackling of the fire and the rhythmic beating of their hearts. Then, as one, they raised their voices in a chant, a prayer for the renewal of Rome. The atrium Vesti, bathed in the soft glow of the morning light, felt different to Livia. The usual serenity of the temple was now infused with a palpable tension, a shared anxiety that hung heavy in the air. The flickering flame, once a comforting presence, now seemed a fragile beacon, its light struggling against the encroaching darkness. The Vestals, gathered around the hearth, exchanged worried glances. The weight of their responsibility, the knowledge that the fate of Rome rested in their hands, pressed upon them like a physical burden. Livia, her heart heavy with the memory of Marcus's sacrifice, stepped forward. The silk cocoon, a symbol of hope and resilience, lay on the altar beside the flickering flame. She picked it up, its delicate threads a reminder of the interconnectedness of all things. "Sisters," she began, her voice clear and strong, "we cannot let fear consume us. We must act. We must rekindle the flame, not just for ourselves, but for all of Rome." The Vestals nodded, their eyes fixed on Livia. "The flame is not just a symbol," Livia continued. "It is the embodiment of our city's spirit, its strength, its resilience. It is the courage of our soldiers, the ingenuity of our merchants, the compassion of our healers, the wisdom of our elders." She paused, her gaze sweeping over the faces of her fellow Vestals. "Each of us carries a spark of that flame within our hearts. It is the love we have for our families, our friends, our city. It is the hope we hold for a better future." Livia's words resonated with the Vestals. They saw in her eyes the same determination they felt within themselves, the same unwavering belief in the power of the human spirit. "But how do we rekindle the flame?" asked Julia, her voice barely a whisper. Livia smiled. "We do it together," she said. "We draw upon the collective strength of our sisterhood, the wisdom of our ancestors, and the love we have for Rome." She turned to the altar, her eyes fixed on the flickering flame. "Vesta, goddess of the hearth and home," she began, her voice rising in supplication. "We beseech thee, lend us your strength, your wisdom, your guidance. Help us to rekindle the eternal flame, to restore the spirit of Rome." The Vestals joined in, their voices blending in a harmonious chant. They raised their hands towards the flame, their fingers tracing ancient symbols in the air. As they chanted, a strange energy began to fill the room. The air grew warm, the shadows seemed to recede, and the flickering flame began to glow brighter. Livia closed her eyes, focusing her thoughts on the people she had encountered. She saw the centurion's unwavering courage, the merchant's boundless curiosity, the mother's fierce love for her child. She saw the countless Romans who struggled and strived, who dreamed and hoped, who embodied the indomitable spirit of their city. With each image, the flame within her grew stronger, its warmth spreading throughout her body. She felt a sense of connection to something greater than herself, a force that transcended time and space. Suddenly, a wave of energy surged through the temple, emanating from the altar. The flame roared to life, its golden glow illuminating the room with a blinding radiance. The Vestals gasped, their eyes wide with wonder and awe. The flame danced and shimmered, its heat radiating outward, filling the temple with a sense of warmth and renewal. Livia felt a surge of joy as she watched the flame dance, a feeling of accomplishment mixed with relief. The ritual was over. The flame had been rekindled, its spirit renewed. The Vestals, their faces glowing with the reflected light of the flame, embraced each other, tears streaming down their cheeks. Livia knew that their work was far from over. The flame may have been restored, but the challenges facing Rome remained. The emperor's tyranny, the corruption in the Senate, the poverty in the Suburra, these were issues that would not be easily solved. But Livia was no longer afraid. She had seen the heart of Rome, and she knew that its spirit was strong. As long as there were people who loved their city, who cherished its ideals, who fought for its future, the flame would never truly die. The Vestals spent the rest of the day in quiet contemplation, reflecting on the events that had transpired. They knew that they had been given a second chance, an opportunity to make a difference in the world. They vowed to use their power and influence to help those in need, to speak out against injustice, and to promote the values that had made Rome great. As darkness fell, Livia stood before the eternal flame, its golden glow illuminating her face. She knew that the road ahead would be long and arduous, but she was ready. She was a Vestal Virgin, a guardian of the sacred flame, a daughter of Rome. And she would not rest until her city's spirit was restored to its former glory. Chapter 9, A New Understanding. The morning following the ritual of renewal brought a palpable shift in the atmosphere within the atrium Vesti. The air, previously heavy with apprehension, now hummed with a quiet energy, a sense of purpose renewed. The Vestals, their faces aglow with the lingering warmth of the rekindled flame, moved about their duties with a renewed sense of vigor. Livia, her heart lighter than it had been in days, found herself drawn to the hearth. She knelt before the vibrant flame, its golden light reflecting in her eyes. The memory of Marcus's sacrifice, the pain and anger she had felt, had not faded, but it was now tempered by a profound understanding. The flame, she realized, was not just a symbol of Rome's power and glory. It was a reflection of the human spirit, its capacity for resilience, compassion, and hope. It was the courage of the centurion, the vision of the merchant, the love of the mother, the wisdom of the elder. As she gazed into the dancing flames, Livia saw visions of Rome's past, present, and future. She saw Romulus and Remus, the legendary twins who founded the city, their ambition and determination laying the foundation for a mighty empire. She saw the legions marching across continents, their discipline and valor expanding Rome's dominion. She saw the senators debating in the forum, their eloquence and intellect shaping the laws and customs of a civilization. But she also saw the darker chapters of Rome's history. She saw the cruelty of the gladiatorial games, the oppression of the slaves, the corruption of the ruling elite. She saw the suffering of the poor, the marginalized, the forgotten. Livia understood that the flame was not a static entity, but a dynamic force, constantly evolving and adapting. It reflected both the light and the darkness of the human spirit, the potential for both good and evil. The weakening of the flame, she realized, was not a sign of Rome's impending doom, but a call to action, a reminder that the city's spirit needed to be nurtured and protected. It was a challenge to every Roman, to rekindle the flame within themselves and to work together to create a better future. Rising from her knees, Livia turned to her fellow Vestals, her eyes shining with a newfound conviction. "Sisters," she said, her voice ringing with authority, "we have been given a great gift, a second chance to shape the destiny of Rome. We must not squander it." The Vestals gathered around her, their faces etched with determination. "The flame has been rekindled," Livia continued. "But our work has only just begun. We must use our influence to promote justice, to alleviate suffering, to inspire hope." The Vestals nodded in agreement. They knew that their roles extended beyond the temple walls. They were not just priestesses, but leaders, role models, and advocates for the Roman people. In the days that followed, the Vestals embarked on a mission to spread the message of hope and renewal. They visited the slums of the suburba, offering food and medicine to the poor and sick. They spoke out against the injustices perpetrated by the emperor and his cronies. They organized festivals and celebrations, reminding the people of Rome's rich cultural heritage and its potential for greatness. Their efforts were met with both resistance and support. Some saw them as meddling in matters that did not concern them, while others hailed them as heroes, beacons of hope in a time of darkness. But the Vestals persevered, their faith in the flame and in the Roman spirit unwavering. They knew that their actions, no matter how small, could make a difference. And they believed that, together, they could help to shape a brighter future for their beloved city. The renewal of the eternal flame marked a turning point in Livia's life. She had not only fulfilled her duty as a Vestal Virgin, but she had also discovered her true calling as a leader and a champion of the Roman people. The path ahead was fraught with uncertainty, yet Livia felt an unshakable conviction that her journey had only just begun. The flame, though rekindled, was still fragile, its glow a testament to the delicate balance between hope and despair that defined Rome's tumultuous era. As she crossed the threshold of the Atrium Vesti, a sense of calm washed over her. The familiar scents of incense and beeswax, the gentle murmur of prayers from the inner sanctum, the rhythmic crackling of the sacred fire, all combined to create a sanctuary from the chaos of the outside world. Yet, the atmosphere within the temple was subtly different. The Vestals, usually serene and composed, now moved with a heightened sense of purpose, their eyes alight with a newfound resolve. The rekindling of the flame had not only restored their faith in Rome's spirit but had also ignited a spark of defiance within them. Livia was greeted with a chorus of relieved sighs and warm embraces. Her fellow Vestals, who had initially feared the worst, were now eager to hear of her adventures. Gathering around the hearth, Livia recounted her experiences, her voice filled with passion and conviction. She spoke of Marcus's sacrifice, the merchant's wisdom, the mother's hope, and Claudia's guidance. She shared the insights she had gleaned, the understanding that the flame was not just a religious symbol, but a reflection of the collective spirit of Rome. The Vestals listened intently, their faces etched with a mixture of awe and admiration. Livia's words resonated with them, stirring a deep sense of responsibility and a renewed commitment to their sacred duty. "We cannot remain idle," declared Flavia, her voice ringing with authority. "We must use our position to make a difference, to speak out against injustice, to help those in need." The other Vestals murmured their agreement, their eyes gleaming with determination. In the days that followed, the Atrium Vesti became a hub of activity. The Vestals, once cloistered within the temple walls, now ventured out into the city, their presence a beacon of hope in a time of darkness. They established connections with influential senators and wealthy patrons, using their persuasive powers to advocate for reforms and social programs. They visited the slums of the suburba, offering food and medicine to the poor and marginalized. They opened the temple doors to those seeking solace and guidance, regardless of their social status or religious beliefs. Their actions did not go unnoticed. Word of the Vestals' newfound activism spread throughout the city, inspiring hope in some and drawing criticism from others. The emperor's advisors, wary of any challenge to Nero's authority, began to monitor the Vestals' activities with increasing suspicion. But the Vestals refused to be intimidated. They knew that their duty extended beyond the confines of the temple, that their sacred vows encompassed a responsibility to protect not just the flame, but the spirit of Rome itself. One day, as Livia was tending to the eternal flame, a messenger arrived from the palace. he bore a summons from the emperor himself, requesting an audience with the Vestal Virgins. Livia's heart sank. She knew that this could mean trouble. Nero was a capricious and unpredictable ruler, prone to fits of rage and paranoia. She could not imagine why he would want to meet with them. But she also knew that she could not refuse the emperor's request. As Vestals, they were bound to obey the laws of Rome, even if it meant facing danger. With a mixture of trepidation and resolve, Livia and her fellow Vestals prepared to meet the emperor. They donned their finest robes, their faces pale but their eyes determined. As they stepped out of the temple, the eternal flame flickered behind them, a reminder of their sacred duty and the unwavering spirit of Rome. Days turned into weeks, and the Vestals' efforts began to bear fruit. Their visits to the Suburra, though met with initial suspicion, gradually earned them the trust and respect of the district's residents. The Vestals provided much-needed aid, their gentle touch and soothing words offering solace to those ravaged by poverty and neglect. Word of their compassion spread, and soon, the Atrium Vesti became a sanctuary for the downtrodden and marginalized. Slaves seeking refuge from cruel masters, beggars seeking alms, and women fleeing abusive husbands all found a safe haven within the temple walls. The Vestals, in turn, learned from those they helped. They heard stories of resilience and courage, of small victories won against seemingly insurmountable odds. They witnessed the strength of the human spirit in the face of adversity, a strength that mirrored the unwavering flame they tended to. Livia, in particular, found herself drawn to the stories of the women. She listened to tales of mothers struggling to feed their children, of wives enduring the infidelities of their husbands, of daughters forced into arranged marriages. She saw the pain and hardship etched on their faces, but also the determination to survive, to protect their families, to hold on to hope. These encounters strengthened Livia's resolve to make a difference. She realized that the flame she tended to was not just a symbol of Rome's power, but a beacon of hope for all who suffered under the empire's yoke. One day, as Livia was walking through the forum, she was approached by a young woman named Aurelia. Aurelia was a slave, her body bearing the marks of her master's cruelty. She had heard of the Vestals' compassion and sought their help. Livia listened to Aurelia's story with growing horror. The young woman had been subjected to physical and sexual abuse, her spirit broken by years of torment. Livia knew she had to help, but she also knew the risks involved. Harboring a runaway slave was a crime punishable by death. But Livia's sense of justice outweighed her fear. She took Aurelia back to the Atrium Vesti, where the Vestals provided her with food, shelter, and medical care. They also began to make inquiries, discreetly seeking a way to secure Aurelia's freedom. The Vestals' actions did not go unnoticed. Rumors of their defiance spread throughout the city, reaching the ears of the emperor's advisors. Tigellinus, the head of the Praetorian Guard, a man known for his ruthlessness and cunning, saw the Vestals as a potential threat to Nero's authority. He dispatched his agents to spy on the Vestals, to gather evidence of their transgressions. He hoped to find a way to discredit them, to silence their voices of dissent. But the Vestals were not easily deterred. They had found a new purpose, a new strength, in their mission to protect the flame and the spirit of Rome. They would not be silenced, not while there were still injustices to be fought, not while there was still hope for a better future. Years passed, marked by the ebb and flow of Roman life. Nero's reign ended in chaos and bloodshed, his tyranny replaced by a succession of emperors, each with their own ambitions and follies. Yet, amidst the political turmoil, the eternal flame in the Atrium Vesti continued to burn brightly, its unwavering glow a testament to the enduring spirit of Rome. Livia, now a seasoned Vestal and a respected figure in Roman society, continued to champion the cause of the marginalized and oppressed. The memory of Marcus's sacrifice, the merchant's wisdom, and Claudia's guidance remained etched in her heart, fueling her unwavering commitment to justice and compassion. The Atrium Vesti had transformed under her leadership. It was no longer just a temple, but a sanctuary for the downtrodden, a place where the voices of the voiceless could be heard. Slaves, freedmen, women, and children from all walks of life sought refuge within its walls, finding solace and support in the Vestal's unwavering embrace. One moonlit night, as Livia sat beside the hearth, her fingers tracing the intricate patterns on the silk cocoon the merchant had given her, she was joined by a young Vestal named Lucia. Lucia, with her bright eyes and eager spirit, reminded Livia of her younger self, filled with idealism and a thirst for knowledge. "Tell me a story, Livia," Lucia pleaded, her voice filled with childish wonder. "A story about the eternal flame." Livia smiled. "Very well, child," she said, her voice soft and soothing. "Let me tell you a tale of a time when the flame nearly died, and of the Vestal Virgin who risked everything to save it." And so, Livia began to recount the story of her quest, weaving together the threads of courage, hope, and resilience she had encountered along the way. She spoke of Marcus, the valiant centurion who had sacrificed his life for the sake of Rome. She described the merchant's vision of a world connected by trade and cultural exchange, and the mother's unwavering belief in a better future for her child. As Livia spoke, Lucia listened intently, her eyes wide with wonder and admiration. The story resonated with her, igniting a spark of passion within her heart. "Livia," Lucia asked, her voice filled with awe, "do you believe the flame will ever go out again?" Livia gazed into the dancing flames, her mind drifting back to the prophecy she had received in the temple of Jupiter. "The flame is eternal," she said, "but it is also fragile. It needs to be nurtured, protected, and passed down from generation to generation." She looked at Lucia, her eyes filled with a profound understanding. "It is our duty, as Vestal Virgins, to keep the flame alive. It is our responsibility to ensure that the spirit of Rome, the spirit of hope, courage, and compassion, continues to burn brightly for all time." Lucia nodded, her heart filled with a newfound resolve. She knew that one day, she too would be called upon to protect the flame, to carry on the legacy of the Vestals. As Livia finished her story, a comfortable silence settled over the room. The only sound was the crackling of the fire and the soft breathing of the two women. Livia looked at Lucia, her eyes twinkling with love and pride. She knew that the young Vestal was destined for great things, that she would carry on the torch of the Vestals with honor and integrity. "Remember, Lucia," Livia said, her voice filled with warmth, "the flame is not just a symbol. It is a living entity, a reflection of our collective spirit. As long as we keep it alive, as long as we nurture it with love and compassion, Rome will endure." Lucia smiled, her heart filled with hope and gratitude. She knew that she had been given a precious gift, a legacy that would shape the course of her life. And she vowed to never forget the lessons she had learned from Livia, the Vestal who had risked everything to save the soul of Rome. The tale of Livia and the flickering flame was passed down through generations of Vestal Virgins, whispered in hushed tones within the hallowed halls of the Atrium Vesti. It became a legend, a source of inspiration and guidance for those who were entrusted with the sacred duty of protecting the eternal flame. Centuries turned into millennia, and the Roman Empire rose and fell, its legacy etched into the annals of history. Yet, amidst the ruins of ancient civilizations and the shifting sands of time, the eternal flame continued to burn, its unwavering glow a testament to the enduring power of the human spirit. Today, in the heart of modern Rome, the flame still flickers in the temple of Vesta, a silent witness to the triumphs and tragedies of countless generations. It is a reminder of the courage, compassion, and resilience that define the human spirit, a beacon of hope in a world that often seems shrouded in darkness. Tourists from all corners of the globe flock to the temple, drawn by the allure of the eternal flame. They gaze in wonder at the flickering light, their imaginations ignited by the stories of Livia and her fellow Vestals. Some see the flame as a symbol of Rome's glorious past, a reminder of the empire's vast power and cultural achievements. Others see it as a symbol of hope and renewal, a testament to the human spirit's ability to overcome adversity and create a better future. But for those who know the true story of the flame, it represents something far more profound. It is a living entity, a flame that burns not just in the temple, but in the hearts of all who believe in the power of love, compassion, and the enduring spirit of humanity. As you stand before the eternal flame, take a moment to reflect on the sacrifices of those who came before you, the countless individuals who have dedicated their lives to protecting this sacred symbol. Remember the courage of the centurion, the vision of the merchant, the hope of the mother, and the wisdom of the elder. And as you gaze into the dancing flames, know that you too carry a spark of that eternal fire within you. It is the flame of your own spirit, your own unique gifts and talents, your own capacity for love and compassion. Nurture that flame, protect it, and let it guide you on your path. For it is through the collective light of our individual flames that we can illuminate the darkness and create a brighter future for ourselves and for generations to come. The eternal flame of Rome is not just a relic of the past. It is a living testament to the enduring power of the human spirit, a beacon of hope that shines brightly in the face of adversity. It is a reminder that even in the darkest of times, there is always the possibility of renewal, of transformation, of hope. As long as the flame burns, the spirit of Rome lives on. And as long as the spirit of Rome lives on, the flame of hope will continue to shine, illuminating the path towards a brighter future for all. And so, dear friend, as the embers of this tale slowly fade, may the warmth of the eternal flame linger in your heart. May the courage of the centurion, the wisdom of the merchant, the hope of the mother, and the resilience of Livia inspire you in your own journey. Remember, within each of us flickers a flame, waiting to be nurtured and ignited. It is the flame of our spirit, our dreams, our capacity for love and compassion. Let it guide you through the darkness, illuminating your path towards a brighter tomorrow. As you drift off to sleep, may the echoes of ancient Rome lull you into a peaceful slumber. Dream of moonlit streets, bustling marketplaces, and the unwavering glow of the eternal flame. And may you awaken with a renewed sense of purpose, ready to face whatever challenges life may bring, knowing that the spirit of Rome, the spirit of humanity, lives on within you. Good night, and sweet dreams.